The practice of touching, then letting go, is the process of becoming everything. Sounds pretty abstract, huh? So we'll get into it. So first I want to read to you a story poem thing that I wrote years ago. It was kind of my way of processing letting go of a really unhealthy relationship. And when I read this, I want you to think beyond just another relationship. It can be that, but maybe think a little bit further. Maybe think about 2020, the year we just had. Think about the environment and society and what we had been experiencing prior to the pandemic. Think about your role in it. What have you done or not done? What have you tried or given up? How has it impacted you? Are you at peace? Are you grieving? Are you searching for answers and maybe not sure what those questions are? Just be open and listen to whatever comes up as I read this. This is called The Broken Glass. I tried to pour water into a broken glass, and of course, it leaked. I tried again and hoped more this time, as if hoping would fix it. Again, same result. I put it back on the shelf because I wouldn't want to just throw it away. It still looks whole and intact and has potential, even if no one else sees that. I'll just deal with it later. Maybe I don't need to drink as often. Some time goes by and I'm thirsty. Without even thinking, I grab that broken glass off the shelf and pour myself some water. It leaks. I get annoyed, but tell myself that I didn't try hard enough to fix it. So I get some tape and I spend diligent time taping each crack. Afterwards, I put it back on the shelf. I go about my day, still thirsty, but I feel good and hopeful thinking about that glass I fixed. I walk over to the shelf with confidence this time and pour myself some water. Seems to hold. I start to use it regularly again, but after a while the tape starts to fall off, and then I notice a new crack. I begin to feel panicked and anxious because I just don't want to lose this glass. It was finally working again, and I don't want to throw it away like everyone keeps telling me to. Friends keep seeing me struggle trying to fix the glass over and over, and they explain that I'm wasting my time, and it's foolish to think that I can fix it. It's time to throw it away, they say. There are plenty of other glasses. But they don't understand. I can still see its worth and beauty, and I know it's not really helping me quench my thirst right now, but maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. I get glue. I start to glue each crack. It doesn't look the same anymore, and the glue begins to stick to me, and I get more and more frustrated because I'm just trying to do something good and save this glass because no one else would. My fingers keep getting stuck to it, and I cry out, "Why is this so hard?" One of the cracks gets bigger and forms a gaping chip, which then cuts me deeply. I step away. I tend to my wound, but I'm angry now. I'm angry because I was just trying to do something good. I was trying to fix the cracks and just to help make it not broken anymore. And instead, I made it worse. And now it really hurt me. It wasn't enough that it couldn't provide me with a cup of water that I so desperately needed. Now it hurts me when I only tried to fix it. I regain my composure. I walk back over to the glass. I tell it I'm sorry, but I have to let it go. I carefully place it in a bag and in the wastebasket. Feeling terrible still, I know there's nothing more that I can do. But I realize that it can either break some more on its own, or it can be heated and melted into something new entirely. None of which can happen if I hold onto it and keep trying to fix it. I finally feel at peace. Still thirsty, though, so I reach up and grab a new glass. So, what came up for you as I read that? You can incorporate that analogy, I think, into many ways, in many situations. So just sit with that. Maybe even write it down. Write down what came up for you. For me, it was the pandemic. January 2020, I was feeling pretty darn optimistic. I had been going through some intense therapy, still doing now. It's called EMDR, and it's to really help with trauma and to kind of reprocess trauma and your response to trauma. And I finally started to see the results, like the positive results of doing this therapy. So I was starting to finally feel really good. I was also feeling really great about my business, about music. I had huge plans. Some of my biggest concerts were lined up, highest paying concerts, largest audiences for the entire year. It was a really, really big step forward. And we even had a meeting, we had a couple meetings. One was with my manager, my sound engineer, Eric, sponsors, interns, costume designer, some bandmates, and I even had a fundraising consultant. And we were planning out my 2020 year. We had my budget and the business plan. And it was supposed to really be my breakout year, national debut, if you will, right? So we are stoked, we're feeling good, we have our plan, we've already reached out to sponsors and like investors and, just really feeling really good. We've worked so hard to get here, and now we can see our plan for the year. So I was excited. Then March comes along. The first show was canceled. And I thought, no big deal. This wasn't a really big one. I have time to keep working on my album. Which I just thought, no big deal. As long as May doesn't get canceled, I don't see that happening. There's no way. This will definitely pass. As long as May doesn't get canceled. May was our huge Canton Symphony Orchestra concert where we would have had, the full orchestra, choir, full band, like the works with an audience of 5,000. They had a fundraising campaign going. Everything I had dreamt of from childhood. Just so stoked about this. We had been working on this for like 2 years prior. So I'm like, as long as that doesn't get canceled, no biggie. So I know you know what happened. May comes along. The concert was canceled indefinitely. I had a meltdown. It didn't make sense. Like, was this the end? Was it the beginning? And it didn't really matter. Like so many other humans, I was scared. And I was also so crushed. I know most of you know that for me, music is my therapy. It's how I cope. It's how I found my voice. It's given me so much. And I just felt like it was just stripped away in the blink of an eye, just like I couldn't see the future. And so it was really hard. And I found myself grieving. So after some time of being really depressed and feeling really hopeless and eating way too many cheese balls, which I highly, highly don't recommend eating. They're terrible, and I have food allergies and shouldn't have been eating them to begin with. I just started to think about the experience of the entire world. Like we were all going through this thing together. Everyone had losses, even lost loved ones. And we're going through this, but we can't really be there physically for one another. It was like essentially like a collective isolation. We had our households, but the world was canceled. So we were all experiencing this sort of trauma in a way together, but separately. And it was really interesting to me when I thought about it. And I think that what we had been doing leading up to the pandemic was just not working. We had become so disconnected from each other, from our environment. We'd become distracted, complacent, cruel, polarized. And we've been doing this for years, and I think it just got worse. And I think in a way it was Mother Nature and the universe saying, stop, no more. It's time for change. And we essentially got the opportunity to either keep breaking or become something better. It's as though the universe realized that it needed space and time to heal itself and give us a reboot. And we needed space and time to reflect, start fresh, and grow. So we were forced into this nothingness to really sit with ourselves and learn more about ourselves and our place in it all. And I think in a way we can be grateful for this. Wildlife started coming out in places that we would normally occupy and take over. It's as though the earth and the environment were finally free of us. We had created some space. We didn't create some space. The universe created space for it to heal. And it's kind of bittersweet because then we started to see how much we occupy and how much we take for granted. We finally realized time away from each other was something that we also took for granted. A hug, a handshake. I think we finally were able to appreciate what we have and have more of an awareness of all the gifts the universe has given us. This forced great pause, that I like to call it, after this article, I've posted it on my Facebook page. I'll send it to you guys again. It's very similar to a practice that I want to talk about. It's a practice that I think really makes the process of letting go more manageable. Because let's be honest, it's not hard. It's not easy. So before I get into the practice, first, fun fact. I was listening to this podcast. It's called like Meditative Story. Very cool podcast. Highly recommend it. And I'm sure you know this already. I think I knew this, but just hearing it again just kind of blew my mind. Stars, one of the elements that make up stars is iron. Iron is what pumps through our veins and keeps us alive. So we are made up of the same stuff that stars are. We are a part of stars. We are a part of the entire universe. Very cool. So when we get to know and understand ourselves, it's essentially the same thing as the universe getting to know and understand itself. It's pretty incredible. So this practice is kind of what helps us to get to know ourselves more. And that is the practice of meditation. You're not really going anywhere. You're going nowhere with this practice in a sense. But that's where you can finally feel connected to everywhere. Because when you're empty, you finally feel in touch with everything. And that's what this does. So there are tons and tons of different kinds of meditation practices, and they're all great. I highly recommend trying them all. But the one that has really resonated with me the most and has given me the greatest benefit is a practice called Shambhala. And it's a mindfulness practice, and the focus is literally just on your breath. It's emptiness, it's nothing. And so I'll just kind of give you a little idea of like how I meditate, just kind of give you an example. So I have a cushion. You don't have to use a cushion. The cool thing about this is just be mindful of what works for you. It's your experience. So I have a cushion. I sit on my cushion, sometimes, with my legs crossed and sometimes just kneeling. You put your hands down really softly on your lap, and you want to have a healthy posture because your goal is to kind of connect ground to sky. You want to be this sort of channel with this energy coming through you from the sky to the ground. If you can kind of think of it like you're beaming, right? There's this energy flow that just kind of goes through you. And while you're sitting in this healthy posture, you focus on something 6 feet in front of you, approximately, down. And you hold this gaze. While you're holding this gaze, the same time you're holding it, you let it go. So then it becomes a sort of haze. That's why I chose the name. Right? So while you're doing this, you start to focus on your breath. Sounds easy, right? No, it's not easy. Because humans have so much information constantly running through our minds. So the goal is to just recognize whenever you have thoughts and just label them thinking to yourself. And then just come back to breath. Just say thinking, come back to breath. And you won't really understand why this works until you've done it for a while. It is a practice. You cannot perfect it. I don't know if you can really ever perfect it, unless you're a monk or something. But the point is that it's a practice. And I really like to call it martial arts of the mind, kind of like a Mr. Miyagi approach, right? You're just like, why am I doing this thing? It seems so simple. I don't really understand it. How is this related to anything in my life? Until all of a sudden something major happens, and then you're like, wow, I never would have reacted that way. I know I wouldn't have. What you're doing is by recognizing your thoughts and then coming back to breath. At first, you may only recognize your thoughts twice in a 15-minute sitting. But then that time becomes shorter and shorter. The time between thought and breath becomes smaller. So before you know it, you've created more and more space. And I'll tell you why that's important. If you can think of your mind as like a filing cabinet, well, thousands of filing cabinets inside of your brain, right? Thousands upon thousands. And in each of these filing cabinets is a folder of information. You pull out one, that post that someone made on Facebook. What am I going to eat tomorrow? Did I email that guy back? Tons and tons and tons of information. And this practice is basically allowing you to open that filing cabinet, take one of those folders out, look at it, acknowledge it, thinking, and then letting it go. And the reason that's important is because you're teaching yourself in this space that when you have emotions or feelings, you acknowledge that. You honor that. You nurture that. Then you let it go. You don't let it eat you up and take over your life. You learn to do this. It's not an overnight thing. And essentially, what you're doing is you're taking care of yourself so that you can learn to take care of and appreciate everything outside of yourself. So it's like you are creating this space. Well, it's not like, it is. You are creating this space so that you can make room for positivity, opportunity, wisdom, compassion, and essentially happiness. Like, honestly, I really truly believe that we already have all of the information that we need. Everything is within us. So in order to become closer and in touch with ourselves and really get to know ourselves and honor ourselves so that we can find that connection to everything else, we have to do some cleaning, So by doing that, we're just becoming more and more compassionate, more and more in touch, more and more connected. And I think that we already have, what I've noticed from meditating is that my intuition becomes way more intense. And sometimes I can't really tell, is it clairvoyancy? Is it law of attraction? I think sometimes they're just one and the same. I don't know, but that becomes a lot more heightened for me. Another thing I noticed is that sometimes I'll use vocabulary words that I never knew I knew. So you get that too, Cheryl. So yeah, I'm like, what? I've never used that word in my life. How did I even know what that meant, and how am I using that in this sentence? But it's because we already know it. We already have all this information, but you're making space to then unlock it, to unlock your magic, your knowledge. So it's pretty amazing. The more you connect to your heart, the stars, the more you contribute to the universe healing and growing and understanding itself. Everything we need is inside us. Touch it, then let go, and it will grow and grow. What you do for you is important for everything. It's important for today. It's important for things to come. And it's important for what's already happened because it gives it purpose. I think the universe, Mother Nature, needed things to change, even if just slightly, to wake us up. It started this process of letting go so we could discover something new about ourselves and each other. Some of us will work harder, love harder, and appreciate more out of this. Others may not even think twice about it, may not change at all. Either way, we've had this opportunity to really start something new, to become better. What do you take from it all? So when I improvise on the piano, it's kind of like meditating for me in some ways. If I think too much about it, I make a mistake. So I have three options. The thing is, like, we're all going to make mistakes. It's what you do with that mistake that matters. So I have three options here. I can either dwell on it and obsess over what you're thinking as the listener, and then just have an awful time trying to complete the improvisation, where it makes me uncomfortable, it makes you uncomfortable, it's just really awkward. This is my least favorite option. Option 2 is that I make that mistake, I notice it, and I let it go. And then you might not even realize that I made a mistake because I didn't let it get to me. Option 3 is that I make that mistake, I lean into it, and it becomes something new entirely. So we all have the ability to do this. It's all of your perception about self. And this practice really, really helps you to let go. So looking back, I realize that I had the opportunity to finally relax. You know, I'm kind of a workaholic, and like I felt like, wow, there are no plans. There are no plans. So I was able to relax. I was able to spend time with my wife. I was able to spend time with myself, to understand myself, to understand our relationship. I finally had time and space to create what I think is my best work yet. And when I look back, and if I'm being truly honest, I don't think I was really ready a year ago. I think I had to meet myself again, discover my connection with everything. And now I'm in the process of free falling, trusting in wherever the future takes me. I don't know how or when. I just know that it is incredible. Because I choose to embrace every part of me that suffered, every part of me that still struggles today. And I choose to let it all go, to create space for something new and remarkable. And the cool thing about a new glass is that you can see everything through it. It's transparent. Similar to being vulnerable, being genuine, honest, true to your core, how I think we should be with ourselves and each other. And when you really practice this process of touching and letting go, maybe one day you'll see through that glass and find the universe holding you.